Well, hello and happy Monday. It is that time of the week again. We've been on a 2-week hiatus, I believe. Mike Irwin back. Welcome. How you feeling?
Good.
Well, good. And, you know, Pig in Paradise wants to know how you're doing as well. Our very first question right off the bat. A lot has happened since you've left. How was vacation, Mike?
Pretty good. I went to Lubbock to a place called Raider Ranch. You can guess. A lot of Razorback fans in that retirement community. It's very fancy. It's got 4 buildings and a big courtyard in the middle, so it's isolated. And all these elderly people can go down and walk. They've got a big pond and they've got a sidewalk that goes around and they can walk laps. And my mom's up on the 2nd floor in an apartment. I can go out on the balcony and watch her. And I took pictures of her, you know, going around, and I'm yelling at her. He's gaining on you. You know, some guy's going faster. She's 95 years old, physically in great shape. She can't hear. So, like, if you're sitting there watching TV, like she watched Texas Tech basketball games, but then I talked her into a couple Arkansas games, but she can't hear, so she turns it up real loud, and then she's like yelling stuff, you know, and so you have to yell back. And she thinks because I do sports that I'm an expert on Texas Tech and I know beans about them. So she was annoyed by that, but it was all right. It was fun.
Well, good. And you got to watch a lot of Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, too.
Oh, my goodness. Wheel of Fortune. I'm like, I was like, God, I can't stand the music.
Well, we are happy to have you back. Our first official question is about Arkansas getting hammered by OU on Saturday. Chris Turnage says they are not a good team right now, shouldn't be ranked where they are. Bama, Kentucky, and a couple more will run them out of the gym if they don't learn to play as a team. Mike, your thoughts?
I'm not sure I'm ready to say they're not a good team. I would agree that they're didn't deserve to be like at the top, in the top 10, on the edge of the top 10, close to the top 10, and now they've fallen down pretty far below in the lower part of the top 25. Clearly, they've had some issues that sort of we've seen all along, mainly an inconsistent play. To me, people keep talking about they don't shoot well. Well, they don't shoot three-pointers very well, but they didn't do that really all that well last year either. The three-point numbers are what's really down. The rest of it is better. All the other stats offensively, they're better than they were a year ago at this time. When you go on the defensive side, that's where you see some difference. Teams are shooting better against them. They're getting more assists against them. And you can see that they're breaking down defensively to me. Now, years ago, I watched a Razorback workout under Eddie Sutton, and he was a big man defense guy, and he was mad at his players because they weren't playing the kind of defense he wanted. So he took the starting 5, and for a whole workout, he made them do nothing but play defense. They could not, every time there was a rebound or a missed shot or whatever, they just went back to, you're playing defense again. And he said, I'm doing this because you guys play defense like you don't like defense, you're bored with defense, you want to get back on offense. I want you to show me that you can learn to like playing defense. And that's what these guys sort of look like. They break down after about 15 or 20 seconds. And sometimes they do look confused, but I think a lot of it is just, hey, come on, let's get the ball back and go down and score. So there's that problem. But, you know, anybody that watched the first 2 years under Musclemen knows this. His teams get better as the season goes along. He uses the early part of not just non-conference, but early part of the conference play to kind of solve some problems. We got a lot of good parts, but sometimes when you put really good players out there, they don't mesh together. And I think that's sort of what's going on here. They haven't figured out who does what, when, where, how. I think he will eventually figure it out, but who knows? But right now, I wouldn't say it's time to panic.
Yeah, one question for you, because I was curious. I watched Trey, Wade, and KK Robinson and Jackson Robinson on the bench most of that OU game. I was surprised at that point you don't just sub to see if you can get a spark.
Yeah, it's hard to say. He bases that a lot on what they do the week of a game. Now, look, it was going to be interesting to see what they do on Saturday in North Little Rock, how they handle that, because I'm guessing it's not much fun in practice this week.
Yeah.
I mean, he went off on those guys after practice.
He was upset.
I mean, he really chewed them, kind of used the public forum to say, this is what's wrong with you. But whatever, you know, I didn't think they were a top 10 team to begin with. Didn't expect them to be. The issue is where will they be in February and March?
Yeah. Well, Sue Slayton asked, what did you think about Musclemen getting kicked out of the game? I liked it. The game was lost, and what he thought about the poor job they and he was letting the refs know what he thought about the poor job they did, but some of my friends says he needs to take a chill pill.
First of all, the words chill pill and Musclemen don't go together, so her friends don't get it. This guy is in your face. He's an emotional guy. His wife's always talking about it. Everybody knows he's like that. That didn't surprise me. The game was out. It wasn't going to affect the outcome of the game. So you get thrown out, and it doesn't matter. I think he was trying to make a point to the refs. I think he was also trying to make a point to his own players. Was the refereeing that bad? No, overall probably not. But when they were trying to come back down the stretch, what they were trying to do was get inside points because they were shooting so poorly. And he finally had them working a little bit, getting it inside, and then you go up and you get hammered, and you don't get a call, and I think that's what frustrated him.
Well, I'll tell you this. I was sitting on the baseline, and I could tell from my perspective, you're absolutely right. OU was very physical under the basket, and that was the same way on the other side. The refs stopped calling stuff. They were calling stuff in the beginning of the game in that first half. We're not calling it in the second half. To your point, yeah, Musclemen was like, I'm trying to make a comeback here. We have to get to the free throw line, and they couldn't. And he was wondering where all those calls went that he was getting earlier in the game.
And that's just a part of basketball.
Yeah. I feel like the ejection was a little much. If it takes all 5 of your assistants and then your son dragging you, that was maybe a little much.
Nutso.
Maybe a little much. All right. Well, Spud Moore has a message for Arkansas's AD after Sam Pittman changed agents. He says, don't fall for that maggot. Jimmy Sexton, Hunter Yurachek, stand strong. You're building a great athletic department. Sexton has used us to get so many coaches raises and steer coaches away from here for years. Another comment on the change in representation, Dr. Strangepork on the same subject.
Another graphic here.
Yeah, wants to know, with Pittman changing agents, renegotiating his contract, does this signal a shift from his "all shucks, I'm so proud to be here" spirit? This is now a business and it's about money. Another comment on the topic, Hog in Texas has this to say about it. Pittman has made it very clear that this is his last job and he's exactly where he wants to be as a head coach. Hiring Sexton seems to be out of character for that statement. Can you help clarify potential reasons to him hiring him? That makes some sense. And finally, again, another topic or another comment on the topic. I think we're all making a stretch. Saban and Smart both have Sexton as their agents. I think the big question that a lot of people want to know is basically, what's the point of the move?
Yeah. Kind of trying to judge this on social media. I think it went about 60-40. About 60% went, well, okay, you know, he's doing a great job. We're happy. We don't have Morris anymore. Pay him whatever. And they're all talking about how much money everybody else in the SEC West is making, and so they don't have a problem with all this money. Now, the issue here, boy, there's a multitude of issues here. Let's start with the thing that was referenced, which is Sam Pittman had said for so long, hey, I didn't even know what my contract was when I agreed to coach here. I just wanted to be here. I'm going to be here forever. This is my last job. That all sounds like you're not going to, I don't know how you negotiate for a lot of money if you say that up front.
You no longer have any kind of
yeah, and he had this kind of family friend that was his agent, and I think fans like that. Fans don't like what's going on right now, at least Hog fans don't, with all this Jimmy Sexton stuff. I mean, you can go back to Bielema, all that stuff. Sexton has this reputation of just tearing ADs apart, just squeezing them and getting all this money out of them in big buyouts, and then his client crashes and burns and is like, okay, bye, I've got all my money, I'm Gus, I'm leaving with all kinds of wads of money and going to Central Florida. And there's just so many examples of that Hog fans love the fact that Arkansas had this guy that was just like, well, I don't know, I got a family friend here over as my agent, I'm not going to be trying to get a big high-dollar contract. So which is it? Are you mad that he's doing this? Or are you afraid he might suddenly start playing hardball and trying to leave or whatever? So he comes back in his first bowl press conference, and somebody asked him, and he said, well, look, I'm still not going anywhere. It's still my last job. But there's other reasons that you get an agent other than money, and I'm not sure I bought that part of it. But when you make the statement up front, I'm not going anywhere, then this becomes very interesting because now we're getting these stories that Sexton is already asking for $7 million a year. $7 million a year, I think, for 7 years or whatever. That more than doubles his salary. Okay, that's a huge jump in 1 year. But then everybody else points out, well, it still makes him either at or below most of the SEC West coaches. Well, here's the issue. Most of those coaches have been around for a long time. Some of them have won
national titles
or
SEC titles
or been consistent more than Arkansas. And that Pittman he's got 2 years of resume behind him as a head coach. Say, I've done this.
Right.
So, again, you can go back and forth on this. You can say he's worth $7 million. But here's the thing. If I'm Yurachek and my head coach has already said I'm not going anywhere, so here comes Jimmy Sexton calling. I already don't like Sexton because of that whole business of supposedly Pittman. Supposedly Yurachek had a verbal agreement with Lane Kiffin. And then when Yurachek sent him the contract, he calls up and says, hey, have you signed that yet? And supposedly got referred to Jimmy Sexton, who then said, well, wait a minute, OU is in the mix, and blah, 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 they're offering this. And like Yurachek's like, see ya. So now you can see him, he don't like this guy anyway. So Pittman says he's not going anywhere. Sexton says, I want $7 million for my client. If I'm Yurachek, I go, nah, I'll give you 5. I'll put some improved performance-based incentives in here, but I'm not just going to give you an extra $3 million. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So, but that's just me. I don't know what he will do.
I have a question for you, because we look now in hindsight, not comparing at all Hunter Yurachek to Jeff Long, but Jeff Long was raked through the coals when he gave Bielema that extension. And it was after Bielema had 2 years that were okay, but again, in Arkansas standards, after recent history, it was like, heck yeah, we're in the right direction. You have Jeff Long giving him this extension, and then he gets criticized for it, fired. Obviously, we know what happens with Bielema. Hunter Yurachek's got to be sitting there saying, hold the brakes now.
Exactly.
I can't just throw money at you and it burned me in the long run. Not saying that that's going to happen, but you do have to be cautious.
He already, in his opening press conference, he said, I don't like these high-dollar contracts with mega buyouts. I'm against that. So now we're going to see who gives in here. Is it Pittman, or is it Yurachek, or do they already know what they're doing?
And I know it's business, but this is the kind of stuff that kind of just like, you just don't want to, and you don't want to talk about. Like, you just kind of just aren't the most excited.
I think Hog fans love this good old boy image, and they kind of hoped it would stay that way.
All right, well, let's talk to Traylen Burks now. Opting out of the Outback Bowl, Leland Nixon says every player has a risk of injury every time they play. If you sign up to play, you sign up to play the whole season. What are your thoughts?
Another one of these huge, controversial, what's the right answer here? I've been tracking this on social media, Twitter, Facebook. I'm saying it's about 95% of Hog fans' support of Traylen. Most of these people are saying, what planet do you live on if you don't like this? This is what everybody does now if they're a potential first-round pick. They don't take a risk. There's too many examples of guys that did it. And
but are there?
I don't know. This
I don't think that there are.
This is what they say. There's too many guys that went ahead and played in the bowl game, and then they were a third-round pick instead of a first-round pick. So you got that on one side. Here's what I don't like. If you're respectful, now if you just, supposedly some guy called a radio show in Little Rock right after this happened, and he was throwing out cuss words and saying bad things about Burks. No, nobody believes in that. You're a moron if you do that. But let's say you're respectful like this guy. And you just say, look, I just believe that you play the whole season. Then if you want to opt out and get out of your senior year, okay, fine, but you play the whole season. If you say that respectfully and that's your opinion, why are you getting hammered? And this is what's happening. People are hammering these guys, talking about how they're clueless, they don't understand what's going on out there these days. There's no reason for you to have that opinion. And I see that a lot on social media, and I don't like it because, again, you may have an unpopular opinion, but as long as you're not being a jerk about it, I don't understand why people can't accept that this guy disagrees with you.
Yeah, it's the world we live in, but it's interesting. I had some people reach out to me and say they felt like maybe Traylen was giving Arkansas the middle finger. I saw something on Facebook when we posted some stuff about the bowl game where it's like, well, I'm not going to even watch anymore because Traylen's not playing. And to me, I'm going to say this. I understand that it is trendy right now to opt out. I am not an athlete. I am not an NFL draft pick. I will not make millions of dollars. I understand that. But I also don't think that there is enough evidence that shows, yeah, you're going to get hurt and you're going to ruin your career by playing in this game. You made a mention yesterday that Matt Corral is playing in this game. But I also think, too, for Traylen Burks, the way that I look at it is you're now missing out on a bowl experience with your teammates. If they'd have gone to a bowl game last year or the year before, maybe that's different and you opt out of this one. But this is about that entire week of spending that bowl week with your teammates, and you don't get any of that. And it hurts to think that he misses out on something like this with this opt-out. And I thought it was very funny that my man Deion Sanders said, I wish it was like the old times we played in games. And think about everybody in the NFL who has been successful up until, 2015 when this opt-out got popular, have been fine. All those guys still played.
Mike Leach.
Again, it's your opinion, and I'm not saying anything. That's kind of how I feel.
Well, Mike Leach made a comment earlier, I think last week. He said, I don't like this. I don't like players doing this. And then he's getting hammered. Well, you've left places and you've left blah, blah, blah. You've gone for the money. So there's certainly both sides to this issue.
There is.
I don't really have a problem with Traylen. I would have liked to have seen him play. Here's what I think. I think this goes away if Arkansas wins the bowl game. If they don't, and it's obvious they were lacking in their passing game, then it's going to come back up.
What I really feel strongly about is you might have an opinion on this topic. Don't make it an opinion about Traylen Burks in general, because you still need to be grateful for the Traylen Burks that he is as a person, as a player, what he means to the university, the way he's represented the university, and the way he will represent the University of Arkansas in the NFL. So just because you might not agree with this, don't let that tarnish your opinion of Traylen Burks as a whole. All right, we'll move on now. All right. Voleur de diamant, which in French means diamond thief, on Hogville says, Missouri was a good win, but left something to be desired. Who is responsible for the waste of time we saw in the first half? Why beat around the bush when Arkansas was obviously capable of scoring at will with bread and butter, north-south play calling?
I've been very cautious to criticize Kendall Briles about play calling, because I'm aware of the fact that Sam Pittman is involved in the mix. He's got headphones on. A lot of times you may be criticizing Kendall Briles when it's actually Pittman that called a certain play or whatever, or they go into the game with, we're going to run it more in this game, or we're going to do this or that. In this particular case with the Missouri game, I think, wasn't Tara the halftime, wasn't she the sideline
Tara
report?
did not do the Missouri game.
Okay, well, whoever did that.
That was CBS.
Whoever did the game. I remember that person specifically saying that when Pittman came out of the dressing room at halftime, he said, we're not running it vertical enough. We're going too much on the edges. And you could see it. You could see the one big play in the first half was K.J. Jefferson went straight up the gut on a quarterback draw about 70 yards. And then there was another big play where they threw it over the middle to Traylen Burks. But what you're seeing mostly is little screen passes on the edges, running on the edges, and they were going nowhere with that. So I agree with what he said in that it was almost like the first quarter was wasted. And then they kind of decided, now, you could argue that what he's doing is testing a defense and seeing, okay, what happens if we do this? What happens if we do that? So I'm still not going to be hypercritical of Kendall Briles for this. But here's the thing. If you have an issue with this, that's fine. Let me just say that the single most important thing that happened, I want to reemphasize this, the single most important thing that got Arkansas from where it was to where it is now, which is 8 wins against the toughest schedule out there, and some pretty impressive football games, including playing Alabama, almost had a chance there at the end to win it. going to LSU and winning, all that stuff that they did, the single most important factor was K.J. Jefferson's development as a passer, and who gets credit for that? It's Kendall Briles. I sat here and said on this program and others that I felt like that was the biggest question mark going in the season. I watched KJ in the preseason. I didn't like what I was seeing. I just didn't think he could do what Felipe Franks did the year before. I was really worried about it, and I was just dead wrong about that. And he got better and better as the season went on. And I think he was the most efficient passer in college football. And now there are people saying he might be a Heisman candidate next year, and I'm not so sure he's not. Arkansas is going to have to win some games that they didn't win this year. But this guy really, really, really developed, and the guy that gets credit for that is Kendall Briles.
Yeah. Razor Boo wants to know, with Texas coming to the SEC in 2025, will the powers that be restart the T-Sipper A&M game on Thanksgiving weekend and move Arkansas LSU back to its rightful, there's a lot of things in this one, back to its rightful place on the Friday after Thanksgiving?
Long story short, this is just my opinion, but no, I do not think that's going to happen. Here's why. I think LSU values A&M more as a rival than they do Arkansas. I think it's a bigger game than that was. I think they sort of accepted that boot stuff, but not the way Arkansas did. You saw how the Hogs went over there and grabbed that boot, and they're all proud of it. I think LSU has always looked at that boot kind of
They forgot it once on the field.
You know, whatever. I think they see A&M as a bigger deal than Arkansas is. And I do think that the league, when Texas comes in, I think they're going to figure out a way to do that where it's always at the same time and make it traditional, but it doesn't have to be that weekend. Even if they do shift it, I don't think they're going to move Arkansas back to A&M.
No, what they're going to, okay, sorry.
Here's the thing. We are stuck. We are stuck with Missouri. We don't like it. Missouri apparently does like it, but I think the stupid SEC office is going to continue to insist, hey, Arkansas, you got to accept this. Missouri is your rival. They're right up there to the north of you, and we don't like them, and we don't like you either, so you guys can just be rivals. And we're like, no.
What they're going to do is they're going to move the Red River rivalry to rivalry weekend. That's what's going to happen with Texas and OU, and they'll get Texas and A&M to play and Arkansas and Texas to play. But if you think you're getting rid of Missouri, there ain't no way. There's no way.
It's not happening.
Hog says, I hear that ESPN wants to extend commercials to 3 minutes for football games. The current 2:40 breaks are excruciating and really take the flow and air out of the atmosphere for those there. Is there anything that can stop the constant money grab at the expense of the actual game? Is there anything that can stop? Oh, that's twice. You wrote that twice on my paper.
No. No, there's not anything. Think about the wads of money that are going to every SEC team from ESPN, CBS, and all the ABC, whatever. You're getting all this money, and you're building. What they're doing is they're taking this money and are all building new facilities.
And they're paying coaches.
And they're paying
I was talking to a foundation
This is where some of this
friend,
is coming from.
The #1 moneymaker for the university athletics, because a lot of people were upset about this Traylen Burks stuff, and it's like, I buy tickets, I'm paying for it, the scholarship. It's like, well, actually, the TV money is #1.
It's huge. And so
ticket sales are like #4.
Because it is allowing you to build all these new facilities. Let me just say, if you go over there and talk to people inside the Broyle Center, inside the football program, you know what they're going to tell you right now? Our facility's already out of date. That Fred W. Smith thing, it's 7 or 8 years old.
It's as old as I've been here.
There's a bunch of schools that have already built new and better ones, and it's hurting them in recruiting.
I don't know how you, outside of the dungeon, how do you make that thing better? I think it's nice.
I talked to somebody over there, and I'm not going to say who they are, but they said the answer is it's got to be just gutted, because the idea I heard was where you've got that underground parking thing, just extend that all the way up to the front where the parking is now under the building. And
underneath the practice field.
Yeah, underneath the practice fields, underneath the current parking lot, where all parking around there is underground. And then you build a new Fred Smith Center, or whatever you're going to name it, on top of all that, and go up if you have to. Players don't like being down in that little cramped locker room where there's no windows. It's like we're in a bomb shelter. I mean, I guess if the Russians come after us, we're okay down here if we have a tornado, but we don't like it. So that thing is probably going to have to be replaced. You do that with the money you get from the SEC. So the long story short, no, they're not going to do anything about the length of these commercials. They probably will get longer. And I would also say this, it's not just annoying to people sitting at the games, because as you know, I'm now a studio analyst and I watch these things on TV and it drives me bonkers.
You fall asleep.
There's too many of them. There's too many of them, first of all, and they're too long. But there's not anything we can do about it.
Yeah, wake up, Mike, after commercial breaks. Wake up, game's back on.
I don't want to watch that stuff.
Slobber Slob says Brian Kelly to LSU, 113-40 at Notre Dame. That's just shy of 9-3 on an ACC schedule. How long does he keep the job at 9-3? Welcome to the SEC West. I hope LSU has another bag of money to throw out the window. I want to point out, for example, they do not play a full ACC schedule. They only have to play 6. They are an independent, and then they are allowed to play your teams like Michigan and Stanford and other games like that.
Their schedule has been a little bit suspect compared to what they will play.
I understand that. I just wanted to clarify. They only have to play 6.
You know, this is along the lines of what we were talking about before. This is a backlash against agents. Because the agent that did this contract was at A&M and did Jimbo Fisher's gigantic, humongous buyout. And if you look at Jimbo, you used to be a Jimbo fan, you're not anymore.
Hey, you know what? He got us a national title at Florida State, and I will ever be grateful for that, okay?
But he's Dumbo Fisher, whatever.
It's just still annoying.
What they're pointing out is that this humongous amount of money with this monster buyout he's got there is not in line with his record so far. He doesn't have a better record than the drinking guy that preceded him, right? And Mr. Drunk on an Escalator.
Okay, so I'm curious though. I mean, Brian Kelly is probably one of the winningest coaches right now in college football. Right. Are we going to get this nitpicky and break it down to 9-3? At that, well, then who do you go get? Well, if this isn't good enough, who do you go get?
This is a reaction to the incorrect story that. Now, look, we got to talk about this too, because the media is guilty. People jump out with these dopey stories and everybody freaks out. It turns out to me, the original story was he was going to get $15 million a year. We're like, what are you talking about? I even reacted to that. Are they nuts? Yeah. Well, it turns out more like 9.9 or whatever, which makes more sense. But still, this is a reaction to continuing to hire coaches, give them huge buyouts. We've got so much money that we'll just, I mean, and Texas does this every 2 or 3 years. Just,
throw money.
Here's more money. We're going to bring in this new guy. And we already have seen Sarkisian is off to a horrible start. I'm going to sit here and tell you, yeah, he's got credentials, but I think he's going to fail. And I think they're going to run him off and pay more money and do it all over again. And this is going to keep happening until the AD that does this gets fired. So again, my question is not necessarily to coaches, but to athletic departments is like, who do you go get? If this isn't good enough, this 9-3, 113-40 at Notre Dame is not good enough. He's taken that team to a national championship game and into the playoffs. If it's not good enough, who do you go get? And then do you turn the finger back on yourself and say, you need to slow the brakes at just firing people left and right? Yes,
you just fired a coach that won you a national title 2 years ago.
It's not that it's not good enough. He's not good enough. It's that you're going to get, the only way you're going to get him is to offer gigantic money to him. And so the theory would be with some of these fans, how about you go
don't fire Ed O, and then you want to throw money at nobody.
Or go find yourself a Pittman that you don't have to pay out the wazoo, and maybe he ends up lasting, whereas all these big buck guys are, you know, I'm gone now. I'm Sarkisian. Yeah, you paid me $1 billion, and now I'm gone in 2 years. I mean, those kind of things. So that's what this is all about. And who knows? I'm just telling you, the same AD that did Jimbo did this, and he's now saddled 2 schools, A&M and LSU, with a monster long-term contract. It makes what Gus got, which I thought was insane, it makes what he got look silly.
His name is Scott Woodward, by the way.
My way, Scotty.
Okay. Alex for Hogs 88 says it's kind of funny how we gave OU Mike Woods and they gave us Jayden Hasselwood, though it was a shame.
Thought it was a shame.
It says though it. My thing says though.
Oh, okay.
Though it was a shame that Woods didn't have a huge year at OU, how much of an impact would he have had if he had stayed at the U of A? He would have definitely added another threat for opposing defenses to think about. Oh,
maybe,
back to this.
Maybe,
yeah.
you know, maybe gives Traylen a kind of a 1-2 thing. But they did develop some guys. You know, and I think you needed to see that. The kid from Florida, you love Florida State, okay?
No, well, yeah, I went to school there, everybody.
Okay,
Everybody
so,
knows that.
So he comes here, and he gets off to a slow start, but by the end of the year, that kid was stepping up.
Yeah, hey, and look, Florida State traded us Warren Thompson for Jarquez McClellian, who might have saw the field like twice. So
And
Arkansas
Warren
worked out
Thompson,
on that one.
What the value of that was that Arkansas's got a lot of new receivers coming in. Guys, they've got a transfer that's a big name from Oklahoma. They've got some freshmen coming in. So they've got some new faces that are very promising. But there's a value in having a Warren Thompson who will be a fifth-year senior and who went through the SEC at Wars and came out better at the end than he started. And you're going to start off next season with that guy and then work these other guys in. Look, so all in all, what I'm saying is, yeah, Mike Woods may have done some stuff, but who cares?
You know what? I need people to just let Mike Woods go. Yeah. We're so caught up on Mike Woods, but we don't get caught up on this Jayden Hasselwood who comes to Arkansas, great. Trey Williams comes to Arkansas, great. Markel Utze comes to Arkansas, great. Jackson, Landon Jackson yesterday transferring to Arkansas from LSU. We have got to let Mike Woods go. Let him go. Just let him go. It's okay.
I mean, it worked out better for Arkansas than it did for him.
It did. Pat Boat asks, with Sam Pittman's second year completed, who would you say had the better recruiting between him and Chad Morris their first 2 seasons?
Now, this is interesting because the truth is, and I talked to Otis about this. Otis is our expert on it. He said it's about a wash. He said they were very similar. He said the one thing that you could credit Chad Morris with in 2 years was he recruited pretty well. And so the recruiting of freshmen, true freshmen coming in is very similar. It's about the same, according to Otis. The difference is the portal. Morris didn't have the portal like it is now. The rules have changed. And that's where Pittman has really, I mean, you can go back to Felipe Franks. Now you can go with, man, they just landed a defensive end that's like a monster, and they needed that.
Yeah.
And so he's done a really good job of getting big-name guys that you need. You think of what happened on the D line at nose guard, at defensive end, at defensive tackle. You know, they went and got some guys through the portal that just – it doesn't matter about recruiting freshmen and you got the 6th best class or whatever. You bring guys like that in, that's better than, you know, a 5-star guy for that particular season. And I do think there's some pretty good evidence that his actual recruiting is better this year. And obviously, if they keep winning, it will get even better. So, yeah, there's been some stuff on this that I didn't talk about where they're going back and forth on social media and saying, well, hey, you know, you can criticize Chad Morris all you want, but he recruited better than Pittman. He didn't recruit better.
But he didn't suck.
No, that was the one thing he did decently. They couldn't coach, but now he had some good coaches on. You know what the problem with Morris is? His offensive coordinator was a bozo, and his defensive coordinator was over the hill. And the offensive coordinator ruined quarterbacks. Look at all these quarterbacks that
look at Cole
Kelly goes from being like, oh, well, he can't start here, and then he goes, you know, and becomes the, I guess, is it NAI or Division?
It's Division II.
It's bowl.
The FBS.
It's bowl playoff, whatever that is.
FCS.
Yeah.
Bowl Football Championship Series. Yeah, that one. FCS.
Football Championship Series. They actually have a playoff where you don't really.
They do. James Madison beat Cole Kelly.
Yeah.
Last week.
So he goes and becomes and wins the Heisman Trophy version of that division. And then, you know, Nick Starkel bounced back. And I mean, look, you can even look at guys like John Stephen Jones and Jack Lindsay. Okay, they're sitting there not playing and largely being ignored in practice. All of a sudden, I'll just stick them in late in the game because we're getting beat, and they play really well, and they go, okay, well, you'll be the starter this week. Then he starts working with them, and they get worse. So that was the problem with Chad Moore, is not recruiting.
Can I ask you a question about the transfer portal? As it sits right now, you have Spencer Rattler, OU QB, in the transfer portal. News last night, Bo Nix in the transfer portal, Take Bigsby in the transfer portal. What do you feel about what the transfer portal looks like right now? It's pretty crazy.
It is, and I'm really curious about what's going on at Auburn. I mean, Auburn is another one of those schools where, okay, we just ran off Gus, we paid him big bucks, now we brought Harsin in, and what, are we going to run him off next year?
You can't.
I mean,
there's
clearly some issues there with the players don't like him. So
I don't know what's going on. It's weird.
I'm just glad Arkansas does not have those problems right now.
All right, HBT Hogs wants to know, if Lance Allworth was Bambi, does that make Traylen Burks mega Bambi?
Two completely different types of receivers. Lance Allworth was nicknamed Bambi because he was like a deer. He had quick feet. He could go here, he could go there, he could stop, he could start on a dime. He was that kind of a receiver. It was like a skill receiver, but with really quick feet. Traylen Burks is like, I don't know, to me his nickname should be just Bear, Grizzly. Nickname him Grizzly, because look what a grizzly bear does. A grizzly bear will maul you. He runs over you, around you, on top of you, and grizzly bears are a lot faster than people realize. If you don't think a grizzly bear can run, I hope one never chases you, because they're fast. So, if one's Bambi, the other's Grizzly. I don't know. It's just they're different type of receivers.
Absolutely. All right. Semper A. Hog wants to know, will Jayden Hasselwood be eligible to play in the Outback Bowl? Is that realistic or advisable?
As far as we know, what happens on a portal person, a transfer, is they are not eligible to participate in team activities until school starts. You're officially enrolled. And they're not enrolled right now. Yes, technically the new semester has started, but you're not enrolled until you go to class.
All right, and then last question is Lake City Hog wants to know, is there any chance that bowl practices might have a bit looser restrictions for the media? I am sure that I speak for a number of Hog fans that would love to hear from practice reports. I do know, are you deferring to me?
This is your question, because you're the one that runs the whole bowl coverage, not me. I'm
so I do know that we will be able to go to practice on December 27th, 28th, and 29th, which is that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in Tampa. They will also have media availability. We won't be able to go on the 30th or 31st. How long of a practice can we stay? I don't know. That's still up to the universities, and I have a feeling it will pretty much probably stay the way that it always has, with the first 20 minutes.
And what about all these activities? Like, there are cool things you get to do.
Monday they're going to go bowling. We won't be there in time for them to go bowling. On Tuesday,
wait a minute, Sam Pittman bringing the bowling ball?
I wonder if Larry's coming. I bet he is.
Larry.
On Tuesday, I believe they have an outing at the hospital. Wednesday, they're going to be going to Busch Gardens, and I've got some tickets. We're going to go to Busch Gardens, and then.
But you are going with a ticket.
With a ticket as the team, yes. The team is going, and then we can go as well with tickets and follow the team around. Thursday, there's a thing at the beach. Clearwater Beach, and then Friday's a couple banquets and all that kind of stuff before Saturday. So a packed week in Tampa.
And it's good that you actually got a ticket.
Yes.
Because when they went to the Citrus Bowl in 98 season, 99 Citrus Bowl, there's all these activities in Orlando. You got Disneyland, you got Universal Studios, you got SeaWorld, you got all this stuff. So where I was working at the time, I mean, they called me and said, all right, you got to make this a fun. You got to show the fun things that players are doing. So you got to go to Disneyland and do all this stuff and show all the stuff they're doing. So I called up the person running the in charge of the media at that bowl. And I explained, I have to do this. What do I have to do to get into Disney World with the team? I don't want to just go to Disney World. I got to be able to follow them around with cameras. And the young lady who was a college student had just been hired to do this. Oh, no problem. When you get here, you'll have a press pass that will get you into everything. And I said, what? She said, yeah, you just wear this press pass. You can go into Disney World with them, everything you want to do. So I called Dean Weber, who was in charge of the team transportation at that bowl, and I said, hey, I want to go in with you guys. I don't want to get lost and try to find you. He said, you can ride over with us on the bus if you want, but we're going to be here all day long. So if you get tired and decide you want to go back, good luck. You'll have to call a cab because I'm not taking you back on the bus until we get. And I said, hey, fine. I'll be out there shooting what you do. So we come over on the bus. We get off the bus. We start going through the main gates. They're going right through. I get to the little turnstile thing, and they stop me. No, you can't come in here. Where's your ticket? And I'm like, well, no, I'm with them. I got this. And the guy goes, that doesn't mean anything to me. And so I was just, the point is, she didn't know what she was talking about. So
Get
now,
yourself a ticket.
What do I do? Well, there's a little steamboat thing that goes around in a circle out in front of the main gate of Disney World. And so I got on this steamboat and just sat up on the top of it and watched it go around and around and around and say music for like 6 hours. Just dude, I knew
They're
every
just redoing
Disney tune.
It's a small world after all.
Yeah. Oh, just 6 hours of that nonsense. So I do not have good memories of that Citrus Bowl. So hopefully you won't have those problems.
I hope it's much better than that in Tampa. This was a fun Ask Mike. Good to have you back, Mike. We'll be back next week. Have a good one.